Before we get to today's regularly scheduled program, I thought I would unveil, a little new thing I've been working on. So I've already announced that I've got a new logo. I've got a little bit of new fonts going, new colors going. I have some exciting things in the mix yet that I'm not ready to unveil quite yet, but I am excited to as I kind of progress on things. I'm going to have some great, exciting guests coming up, including the one that I have coming up on this episode. But to really take me to the next level as well, I wanted to unveil a new little intro. Here it is. Let's talk episode 18. Let's talk about working moms. So today I have a friend of mine who I met when I moved to what I like to call God City, Pella, Iowa. This is Delanie. Delanie, introduce yourself to the people, who you are, what you do, and talk about maybe your little baby for a little bit.
My little guy. Hi, thank you so much for having me on. My name's Delanie, Delanie Tuttle, and I am a mom. I have a son who's 10 months old. His name is Walker. Walker and Autumn have gotten pretty close.
Yeah. Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
Yes. So I have a son named Walker. My husband's name is Dylan. Dylan and I met at Central College in Pella, and we started dating in 2018, I think. So we just celebrated a dating anniversary, and that's been super fun. Married for 2.5 years, and I also work. I am a Mary Kay consultant, and I have been with Mary Kay for 9 years. I started in college, and I'll talk more about it as we go on. But it's been a huge blessing for our life, for my life and in our family. And yeah, never something I thought I would do, but here I am almost a decade later and loving it. So
That's awesome. And that's actually how we met.
mhm.
Is when I moved to Pella, this lady came to my house and she was like, here's this bag full of Pella coupons. And, people who like know my dad and know my family, we just didn't answer the door when we were younger, like we would like hide from people and people here like just welcome, come on in. So this lady just kind of came on into our house. She handed me this bag full of these coupons, and one of them was a Mary Kay coupon. And so I just texted this random number because I saw free stuff. And I was like, okay, I don't know who this is, but give me the free stuff. And you were like so welcoming and generous. And like you said, Autumn and your son Walker have now hung out a couple times. They may have been each other's first kiss.
Yes,
I
yes.
feel like we were talking and we looked down and all of a sudden our children were kissing, and
Yes.
they're not even like, your son's not even one yet, and Autumn had like just turned one. And so I was like,
Mhm.
wow, okay, I'm gonna have to have this conversation a little bit sooner than than I thought.
It was adorable.
But
Mhm.
today, I wanted to have you on because I feel like you have this really good and unique perspective about, being a working mom, because your mom worked as well when you were growing up, and now you have your own child and you're working. And, I have a job as well and I have a child. And, on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, there is a lot of conversation in our culture that just cannot have both, and that a woman's role is only supposed to be a mom, and that's it. You cannot have a career, as well as being a mom. Or if you, and there's even some people talking who are like conservatives that say that women shouldn't even be having careers before being a mom. They should just focus on being a homemaker. They should just focus on, becoming prepared to be a mom. Megyn Kelly was talking about this on her show, that she's talked to young conservative Christian women who are having trouble finding a partner because their partner, like the people that they're meeting, the guys that they're going on dates with, don't want to date them because they have jobs, genuinely, and they don't just want to just be a wife or just be a mom. And so I wanted to have you on and break it down. And so let's just start a little bit about what you do for work. So you talked about Mary Kay, but kind of talk to us, like, what goes into that? What does a normal day look like for you?
Yeah. Okay, so a normal day looks so different. So let me back up a little bit here. So prior to having my son, I have always done Mary Kay in tandem full time with something else. So full time college, I did it just here and there in between classes. And like slowly, it was never something I wanted to do, but my mom stopped giving me my product for free and very quickly fell in love with it and very quickly was like, oh, everyone's washing their face, so why aren't they just buying it from me instead of them going to the store? So like that was my thought process, and I literally figured if the worst thing that happens is I get all my product at 50% off for the rest of my life, I already know that I love the product, and like that's a whole other thing. Then that was the worst that could happen. So that's how I started. After college, I graduated. I had corporate jobs, corporate careers, and I loved it. It was let me rephrase that. I loved it because I loved parts of it. I loved the how people listened to me, and I loved having a responsibility and like checking it off and setting goals and accomplishing them. And as I worked in my corporate career, I got more confident in that. But all along that whole time, I was always doing Mary Kay. So a day to day now honestly looks very similar to what it did when I was working full time. I left my full time job after Walker was born because I knew that I wanted to be home and raise my kids. But a day to day looks like sending customer texts to see who needs a restock on their mascara. It could be having someone come to my home and maybe Walker's taking a nap or he's playing in the living room. And we're literally like old school Mary Kay sitting at the kitchen table, and I'm teaching her how to match her foundation, or we're talking about skin concerns, and here are some products that can help you, resolve this issue. Sometimes it looks like I'm on a walk with Walker, and he's napping in the stroller, and I'm on the phone with a consultant of mine, coaching her, teaching her how to build her business or like respond to a customer in this way, and really just what I love about it is that I'm able to meet other women because as introverted as I am, I also love that one-on-one connection with people.
Mhm.
And it's not just selling mascara. I think it's teaching confidence. And when a woman shows up to her, when she can leave my table and go home to her family and she feels confident and she feels beautiful, we're not changing the way that she looks, but we're talking about how to naturally enhance her beauty. But it goes so much deeper than that because I've had women expose a lot of things to me. We talk about faith, we could talk about all kinds of things, but they leave my presence and they can go home, and it's not anymore just about that transaction, that sale. It goes so much deeper than that. So that maybe goes a little bit more than what you originally asked, but yeah, a day to day. And there are some days where I don't do anything. I really get to set what that pace looks like for me and what's working for our family in that time frame.
I love that,
Mhm.
and you were talking about how, a lot of this, like, you would say that a lot of your career building and all that kinda stuff started with college, is kind of and so, going back to that time, how long have you wanted to be a mom? How did being a mom kind of fit in with, "Okay, I'm getting into college, I'm meeting all these people, I'm getting into my career, and now," you know, how does being a mom kind of fit in with that?
I always wanted to be a mom. So I'm the oldest of five, and growing up, there were always kids in our home, and my dad worked during the day, and for a while, my mom was working at the children's cancer wing at Mercy in Des Moines, and that just wasn't working for our family anymore because she was working night shifts and wanted to stay home with us, and so
Mhm.
started building her Mary Kay business more seriously as well. So I grew up with that as a framework of um, okay, for like the next hour, mom's doing a facial in the kitchen. So us kids need to like go and play or like do our own thing. But then when she's done, she gets to be my mom again. So we never went to daycare. And I know that there's a lot of feelings about daycare. I think every family needs to do what they need to do with that. But that was really important to me that when I become a mom, I don't want to send my kids to daycare because I've seen what a successful woman and what a successful business can look like who is able to prioritize her faith first and then her family and then her career, but still be with her kids for all of the important stuff.
And talking about your that leads literally right into what I was next gonna ask you, is finding that balance between, being a mom and having a career because, I'm a mom and I, work for the local radio station here, and I work for my dad, and I do this. And it can be very difficult sometimes to find a balance because, just because you're a mom doesn't mean that you're not your own person. I'm
Mhm.
still Anna, you're still Delaney. And I think sometimes when people look at a woman with a child, they just see them as a mom. And so to still have those hobbies and passions, it can be difficult because it's not just
Mhm.
Anna time or, it's not just Delaney time. It's Walker time or it's Autumn time. Like any mom out there will totally understand that. Like you are not on your own, clock
No.
anymore. It's like, "Oh, wow, you're tired already? Okay, cool. I totally wasn't in the middle of something great." And
Mhm.
so I can it can be tricky sometimes because sometimes I find it hard to, have an even keeled balance because either I'm, overly, doing something with Autumn and then I get distracted. I'm like, well, shoot, now I didn't do what I was going to do or I didn't do this.
Mhm.
Or it's like I'm doing my job or I'm writing notes for my, radio show the next day and Autumn's coming up to me like, carry me, hold me, let's play. And I'm like, let me just finish writing this, one thing. And
Mhm.
so, how do you kind of find that balance for you and your family?
Okay, I have so many things I could say to this. So if I start to like go off, pull me back in.
No,
But
you're good. Go ahead.
I'll start with a story that like Walker was maybe 3 months old at this point. I'd given my notice for my corporate job that I was no longer going to go back. I was going to stay home with Walker. And I hadn't really been doing appointments with my business because, I mean, there are things that I was not prepared for postpartum.
Yeah.
And that's a whole
Girl,
other
yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I wasn't doing as much with my business as I have been for the last 10 years, which that's the beauty of it. You can set it aside for a little bit if you need to. And so I was kind of in that season of, okay, I need to set Mary Kay aside for a little bit. And, I still had customers ordering and like doing all of those things, but it was nowhere near to the extent that I was used to. But I remember one day I was in our bathroom giving Walker a bath. My husband was not home from work yet. And I cannot explain to you the joy that I feel when I see Walker's face. Like I love I love being a mom. But I remember sitting in the bathroom watching him do his thing, like splash around. And I just felt like out of nowhere, just this like emptiness, like this pit in my stomach of like, and I remember like saying out loud, I'm like, Lord, I like something is missing. Like what am I missing here? And I don't know if you've ever had these experiences, but it was like a goosebumps, like Holy Spirit moment. And the Lord was literally like, you have prayed for this for your entire life to stay home and raise your babies, but also like your personality and
Mhm.
you love setting goals. You love being that professional leader that you are. So I've given you this opportunity. What are you going to do with it? Like you, at some point, obviously, like heal and bond
Yes.
with your baby, but also at some point you need to pick this back up. Um, and it was such a, like, just like this washing over me. It was like, oh my goodness. Okay. Like I'd been toying with the idea of getting back, and like doing appointments again. And that was the moment like Walker went to bed and instantly like I started reaching out to all these people. I'm like, I need to do a party. I need to put some product on some faces because yeah, it's just when you are called to something, um, the Lord will keep bringing it up and that, yeah, oh my gosh, I could so many other stories with that. But when you are called to something, it's your responsibility to follow that. I really believe that being a mom does not mean sacrificing your ambitions at all. And I'm a very ambitious person, I would say. But being a mom means nurturing your dreams along with your children, alongside your friendships. It's creating a life of purpose and joy. My goal, I pray every day that Walker sees me building my business, balancing my roles, and thriving in a community of like-minded women together. And I pray that he sees that success isn't built on solidarity. I see so many moms, like we went to the park today and I was talking with a mom. She had a son who was a little bit older than Walker. And I asked her, she was fairly new to town, and I was like, are you feeling connected? Like, have you met people? And she's like, no, I don't really get out that much. And I could just like, it was just like this heaviness. And I don't want Walker to ever feel like because I had kids, I had to stop doing what I was passionate about.
Mhm.
Business, they're not at odds. They can go hand in hand and they actually fuel each other. And I think when we're able to bring our kids alongside us in whatever it is that we're doing, even if it means just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, that like at that point we're not even talking about work anymore or like the checklist. We're talking about like legacy things. We're talking about bloodlines and generational blessings or
Mhm.
curses that we could be working through. And this, it goes, oh man, this is something I'm really passionate about. I really believe that the energy that you bring home when you are chasing after a goal, whether it's something with your radio, something with my Mary Kay, whatever it is,
Mhm.
the energy that you bring home to your family changes lives, and it changes your kids because they get to see you doing that together. And not
Mhm.
everyone is called to be that working mom, whatever that looks like for you. But I know that there are a lot of people, a lot of women, a lot of girls our age who are sitting at home raising their babies and they're depressed because they love their kids so much, but they know that there's something else out there and there's this itch they just can't reach, but they feel like they can't because they feel like they're only
Mhm.
identified as a mom and they're just kind of letting everything else go to the side.
See, and it's tricky because and I hate to go down this because I hate sounding all like us women and those men, but
Yeah.
it's hard because I don't feel like guys talk like this. When they go to
Mhm.
work and then they can come home and be dads, or if they're doing work from home and they can be dads. There's never
Mhm.
a conversation like, how do you balance it? Or, how can you be a dad and have a job? That's wild.
Yeah.
And when it comes to moms, it's like this crazy, like thing and like how you said, you have to find something that fits for you because
Mhm.
not every mom is called to go out and work. We both have jobs where we're extremely lucky to be able to do it. They're pretty flexible, like with our children. And so we are lucky and very blessed in that sense because we have that ability. But there are some moms who have passions and callings that lead them outside of the home sometimes, or maybe all of the time. And I just feel like there is this differ in conversation because dads don't have to be asked these questions. It really only comes down to moms, and I feel like
Mhm.
it really comes from people who, in a biblical sense, motherhood is really a big theme for us women in the Bible, and that's great. But there were a lot of amazing women in positions of power and in positions of being able to share their testimony, just like how you were saying. God has used Mary Kay and your job to help you share life with some of these women, share your testimonies with some of these women. And, touching on kind of how you're talking about like postpartum, I mean, you basically were in the thick of that 3 months with Walker. It's like I've done an episode before where we talked about kind of getting your pink back
Mhm.
after, having a baby. And sometimes when you are pregnant, I become pregnant Anna and you become pregnant Delaney, which is a blessing and a gift, but people only see you as that. Like it
Mhm.
feels like every personality trait you ever had before that or anything you've ever done, it goes out the window
Yeah.
and you are just pregnant person. Then you have the baby and now you are automatically mom and I automatically feel postpartum. And I'm almost like just getting back into this where I'm like, I do not need to be wearing this triple XL t-shirt. I'm not pregnant anymore. Like I'm not trying to be comfortable. Like I want to wear things that, I
Yeah.
feel like myself in again because I am myself again. And
Mhm.
I'm using that as an example to kind of go along with what you're saying is sometimes it can be really easy to like find your identity in just being one thing and
Mhm.
being having finding your identity and being a mom is so amazing and it is a big blessing. However, though, that doesn't mean that that just has to be it. I don't just
Right.
have to be Mom Anna, and you don't just have to be Mom Delaney, because,
Mhm.
God gave us gifts. And like you were talking about with the calling and everything, when my husband Steven and I moved here to Pella, I did not have the radio job. I didn't even know about the Christian radio job. I had never even met Bev, who's now my boss. I literally never knew any of these people. And we moved here, and not even a month of living here, they reached out to me and offered me
Mhm.
the job. And I'm like, when you say stories like that, like just hearing God's voice in that bathroom and them reaching out to me about this job, it's hard for me to rationalize how, some of these people are looking at women being like, you guys shouldn't be working moms, or you guys shouldn't have kids and also want a career at the same time, when
Mhm.
God is like so bluntly and like obviously putting these, job opportunities or callings into our lives. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's just, yeah. And so as you were talking, it just reminded me about that, about, kind of finding your identity, but also just like listening to, the calling of what God is calling you to do. However,
Mhm.
though, like as you're kind of finding, this calling, I feel like there are sacrifices that have to be made sometimes, like something's
Mhm.
got to give. And so what are some sacrifices that you have to make as a working mom?
Um, Honestly, I feel like I'm still learning this. So I'm sure a more experienced mom listening to this would be like, "Oh my gosh, she's so clearly a first time like new new mom." But I think it's for me the big things that are sticking out right now is delegation, and
Mm,
something that I've always prided myself on is like time management and prioritizing. Um, One thing I like to teach my consultants is like a six most important things list or a weekly plan sheet to like actually like map out what you have going on for your week, because whether you're working or not, there are things that need to be done. And yes, there's an element of having grace with yourself, but then at some point you need to like just get it done.
yeah.
And like, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, but delegating things, sometimes it means like late nights, like Walker's asleep. So I'll fill some orders tonight. Sometimes it looks like, yeah, Walker's playing and you know what? He's content. So I'm going to go make a quick phone call.
Yes. Yes.
Or like right now behind me, you can't see it, but our kitchen sink is completely overflowing with
Yes.
dishes. And sometimes
Yes.
like there will always be dishes, but this is the thing that is more important. It needs to be done right now. Um, so I'm still learning sacrifices and what that all looks like. But yeah, and also, open communication with your husband or your partner, whoever's helping you out in that regard. I'm very blessed. We have lots of family nearby as well. So whenever I have appointments or like a late party or going on a trip for a conference or something, I'm very blessed with family who's able to step in and help. And I know that's not everyone's reality, but that's mine. So
Yes.
yeah.
And you are not alone. The dishes are so overpowering downstairs. And
Mm-hmm.
also, quick side note, I am gonna put this. It is so hot in this attic, and so if people are like, "Is she going to die? Like, is she gonna pass out?" I am not, and I am just rolling with the fact that my face is literally the same color as my shirt, and we're just going with
Mm-hmm.
it. But so I had to say that. I had to make sure that people knew that I wasn't gonna die while we were filming this. But as you were talking, I was listening. I was not just thinking about the fact that I'm sweating. But
Mm-hmm.
something you said, about having good people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I feel like that's a something that I heard was, so I was taking on a lot of the chores at home. I was basically doing all of it, and I was feeling extremely overwhelmed. I was doing everything. And something that I read was, it's not just your home, it's your husband's home too.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be the one to, clean all of it, do all of it all of the time. And that really stuck out to me because when women are made to be the mothers and the, home care, like taking care of the home and doing all of those things, it can be easy to take on all of those roles, especially and adding a job on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that, you and I are both blessed with husbands who help out, but just also like relying on, people that whether that's friends or, a close coworker that you're with,
Mhm.
even it can be something as simple as sometimes I've had people, like friends of mine, come over to like hang out and talk, but they're like playing with Autumn while I'm also doing dishes and we're just talking and having that fun conversation at the same time.
Mhm.
And so I found that helpful as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I touched on this briefly when we first started because the inspiration for this episode really came from the fact that there's a lot of conversation that women cannot be mothers and have a career at the same time. That, something that there's going to be give and take, that some things are, that you can't be 100% to both, which I agree with. You cannot be 100%
Or you
to
can't
both
be
at the same
100% to
time.
anything, whether
Yes.
you're a mom or work. Like, it doesn't matter what
Yes.
it is. Yeah.
Yes. And, it really makes me sad that there's a lot of, powerful and successful women out there that are having a hard time, finding a partner in life because, like men don't want to be with somebody who wants to be successful, who wants to be powerful. And so I thought I'd just throw this question out and we can talk about it a little bit. Do you feel as if you are going against, God's created order or just the Bible in general by having a career while being a mom at the same time?
When you sent me the questions for this, I looked at that and was like, really? It's such a deep question.
Yes.
I really
Yes.
had to think about it. And I knew that obviously don't feel like I'm going against it. But I really did have to think about and formulate like, okay, how do I want to answer this in a way that captures, um,
Yeah.
everything. And I ended up pulling out this book that I have gone back to for years. I'll send it to you later. It's called As Resplendent as Rubies. My mom actually gave this to me like years ago, and it sat on my bedside table. And I never touched it until one day I did. And like, I wish you could see it, but it is dog eared and like all noted up. Um, but I wanted to read a section in her book. She's going through the different like names or identities that God gives women in the Bible, and
Okay.
she's pulling out like stories and like explaining like Hagar in a way that I've never like. Oh my gosh, that's just crazy stuff. Anyway,
Mhm.
so this is what she says about women, and I think answers it. Yeah, it answers your question, at least in my world. So it says the ancient world didn't sideline women or their role in ministry. We've been taught, or at least I was, that the world of scriptures was patriarchal through and through. But I've gradually come to doubt that it was. It seems to have been a contrasting patchwork that was increasingly frayed at every seam by cultural tensions. The more the Jewish nation came to be like those around them, the less they valued women. And I think Proverbs 31 is a really great example, obviously, of women who are entrepreneurial and stewarding, family businesses. We know stories in Scripture of how women were financing Jesus and his ministry. And even like stories of women. I had this thought the other day. I was getting ready. It came to me out of nowhere, but it was how many women or just people in the Bible in general had like didn't find out that they made it into scriptures until they got to heaven. And
Mm.
just them living their day to day, following in what they felt like they were being called to do, having a close relationship with Jesus, and then like they end up in heaven and they find out, oh my gosh, like my name is
Yeah.
in this book that people have been reading for centuries. I just think that's just such a powerful testament to, again, not everyone is called to this, but everyone is called to something, and it is our responsibility to follow that calling. Because if you don't do it, somebody else will, but it might not have the same impact.
Mm.
And your lack of action is not just impacting you, but we see, again, we could go to all these stories in scripture where one person's action impacted an entire generation. And so, yes, if you don't do it and if you stay home and you never listen to the calling or whatever, God's plan will still reign and it will still come to be, but the impact could be less. Or it could, potentially delay somebody else because they need you to make a move before they can make a move. So it's kind
Mm.
of a domino effect. Um, but yeah, no, I really feel like when you're called to something, it's your responsibility to follow it through. And I believe that there are stories all throughout Scripture of women being amazing business owners and still caring for their home and caring for their family. And also, when you have your priorities of faith, family, career, everything else just kind of falls into place. And it's not even really a concern at that point because you know who you are and you know what you're called to be doing, and you're just walking in that.
That's good. That's really good. And as you were talking, I've talked before about, how God doesn't make mistakes. I feel like a lot of the things that we, suffer through in our culture, like the bad things that are happening, whether that's, you know, people thinking that they can be, different genders or people thinking that they can have abortions or things like that. It's like it
Mm-hmm.
comes and stems from one, I want to be my own God, and two, God is not perfect. He makes mistakes because he would have to have made a mistake if I want to be a different gender, or he would have had to make a mistake by giving me this baby. And when you're talking about, following God's calling, and as a woman, if you're not using your gifts and following God's calling, it almost makes me think, and almost kind of as a challenge, like, are you thinking and making and thinking the fact that God makes mistakes? Because, would God give you gifts that he doesn't want you to use? Or would God call you to things? Or, for example, open a door like for me when I moved here and the radio station just literally texted me and asked me to come in and interview for a job. I had never heard of him. So it's like, would I, if I weren't to, give that a try or use that as God's calling, etc.? And there are clear things of whether or not it is God's calling. Like I was just talking about on the radio today, if it blesses God, it's from God, and if it doesn't, it's not. God's only going to call you or give you gifts that in return bless him or show others, to him. Like just how you're talking about with Mary Kay, the amount of women you've had, faith conversations with or, helped them through those times, like that is clearly then a calling from God because at the end of the day, you are using your gifts and abilities and your passion and hobby and your career to then in turn bless him. Just like, with my radio show, it's a Christian radio show and I'm able to share, my testimony and share different things and walks of life with people. And so that in turn blesses him. And so it makes me think about that the gifts that God gives us and the callings that we have, if we were to, be like, well, I'm a woman, I'm not supposed to go and do that calling or use that gift because I must stay home. If you're being called somewhere that blesses God, are you, and maybe you disagree. I was just kind of thinking this. I was kind of going through this thought process. Like, are you saying that God is making a mistake if you don't follow it? Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, what do you think about everything I just said?
I have a lot of thoughts going through my mind. No, I think that, and I think it comes down to your intention too.
Mm,
As you're working in that, in whatever aspect of work that you're doing, whether it's inside or outside of the home, but everything you do, um, yeah, that everything that the intention that you have when you're doing something and when you're close to, when you have a close relationship and you can feel that discernment. Um, as you're doing things, but
mhm,
that makes a difference too as you're going out and you're working and you're impacting your family. And there's something that you said, um, about women who just stay home and um, maybe feel like they want to but they can't. I think about the impact that then shows their kids.
mm,
And I again, this was modeled to me and my siblings so well. I feel like of um, I love you so much, and we're pouring everything we have into you, but come along with me as I pursue X, Y, and Z. Um,
mhm,
but also with like one of the reasons that I love my like I'm so thankful that I said yes to Mary Kay, and so thankful that I started when I did, is that it is so flexible. I don't have a boss. I don't have to request time off. That was always my personality, is very much like, you tell me I can't do something, like watch me, I'm going to do it. And so
mhm,
even something as simple as like, hey, I need to take an early lunch today. Like I don't want to ask permission. This was when I
Yeah.
had a full-time job. So I've loved the flexibility to be able to, and I've done it in all different seasons of my life, and it's always just fit. And I think that, kind of circling back to something that we had talked about earlier as well, I think a lot of people think about doing something like Mary Kay or something like with the radio, like what you're doing, and think like, I already have so much on my plate. I can't even imagine like putting something else in addition to. But it's just so beautiful to me to see how when you're walking in step with the Lord, and seeing how it just naturally fits into everything, like into my day to day. Like,
Mhm.
at a park, I start talking to people, and pretty soon the stranger is talking to me about acne scars and what do I have that can help her with her acne scars, and we set up a play date. And so like it's never, I've never viewed what I'm doing as an in addition to. It's always been just seeing how seamlessly it fits into everything else I already have going on in
Mm.
my, and I'm just so, yeah, I'm just so thankful for that. And I really, because I remember being in college and all of my friends wanting to go on and like get their PhDs, and they wanted to have these desk jobs or like big corporate like fancy jobs, and I'm like, that just doesn't sound fun to me. Like I loved my major and I was good at it, and all that, but I, when it came down to like actually what I wanted to do, the thought of being stuck in a cubicle or even in an office space or something where I had to report to someone else, that just felt so constricting to me. And I knew that being a mom, when I met my husband, it was, I remember one of our first, I think it was our year anniversary, like the first year we had been dating. We went out to like a fancy dinner, and I, sitting across the table from him, told him, when we have kids, because I already know that we're getting married, when we have kids, I'm not sending them to daycare. I will be staying home with them, but this is my plan for how I could, because I still want to be able to financially contribute to our family.
Mhm.
And I know that when I am working on something that I'm passionate about, when I have a goal that I'm working towards, I show up as a better wife, a better mom, a better friend. And so
Mm.
to be able to show up as my best self for you, I don't need to be 24/7 Mary Kay, but in the hour that I'm setting aside in the evening to be Mary Kay, I'm 100% Mary Kay. And then when I'm done, I can go back and be 100% Walker's mom. I can go back and be 100% Dylan's wife. And again, just those priorities, faith, family, career, everything else falls into place.
Mm. And part of that too is just we live in a time where it is really difficult to be financially stable on one person's income. I mean, at least for my family, it's almost physically impossible to have, the extra things of life. And before we close out, I want to say this too, that as we are, advocating for working moms, and, I kind of put a challenge out there myself. Like, if you are feeling called to something, and you're ignoring it, are you almost saying like God is making a mistake by putting that calling into your life if it blesses him? But I want to make sure that it is abundantly clear. And I know for a fact that I speak for the both of us that no matter what career or how much money we make, at the end of the day, being a mom is genuinely the most filling and most successful I've ever felt. There is nothing I've ever done that makes me feel, and I know I'm speaking for you as well,
Yes.
nothing that, we could ever do that one smile from Autumn or Walker, or, one little, toot slips out, one something like that fills my day more than anything or any job I've ever had,
Mm-hmm.
but it comes down to the fact that just because we're moms does not mean that we also have to, lose ourselves and at the same time. Like, we can also be a person who, contributes to society, has our identity in Christ, is a wife, is a mom, but also a career woman. And I think sometimes these things are being lost, that you can only be one. You have to choose. You have to either have a career or you're never going to have a career, and you have to be a mom. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love the conversation that we had, that to encourage women that, one, you have to find the job that fits for you. It doesn't work for all moms. Like how you were talking, I know for a fact I could not go and work a full-time job, and that's me, and leave Autumn here or go put her in a daycare. I just could not do that. Like that's just not how I work. So you have to find a job that works for you. Find something that is your calling, to the Lord, that if it blesses him, that is definitely from him. If it's something that will in turn give blessings to him and bless other people with your faith, it's clearly from God. And find something that works for your family. And, you can do both and you can do those things. There are just some things that will have to be, sacrificed in the making. You can't, like we were talking about, be 100% there and 100% there and 100% there and 100% there. There are some times where you, like you were talking about, to delegate. And that's something I struggle with too as a first time mom as well. And so learning those lessons and having more conversations like this, where it's like it's not risque for a woman to have a job. This isn't 1945, okay? Like women can have jobs and be moms too and have a hot dinner on the table ready to go at the same time. Like
Yeah.
women are just that crazy. And so
Mhm.
I thought that this would be a great conversation to have. Do you have any, last remarks that you want to share? Anything where, people might be able to follow some of the work you do?
Yeah, yeah. I think when I think about this conversation as a whole, there's so many things that come to mind, but just reminding you that being a woman is an asset, and women are multifaceted, and this is like men are incredible and amazing and all of those things too, but we're specifically talking about us. Um, when you like just put your head down and get to work, like you will be amazed at what happens. And let's not, it's so easy to compare like how men view like it get viewed as career, and oh, you're working and you're a dad, and like how do you do all these things? Let's not start comparing ourselves to them, because God has created you as a woman and he has an incredible plan and identity for you to walk in, and that was not a mistake. And just remembering that, again, the time is going to pass anyway, so you might as well like do something that brings you joy alongside your kids, and bring them into that with you, because when you take your business or your career seriously, your family does too, and they love working alongside you in that. But yeah, but you can follow me on Instagram. I'm Delanie Donovan Tuttle. I still have my maiden name in there. And that's where you're going to mostly find me showing up online. Walker shows up in a lot of videos of me doing my makeup, and
So
he's in
cute.
the background like clanging stuff together, and it's
So
so
cute.
fun. But I mean, it's true, and that's sometimes in order to get ready for the day, your kid has to make a mess on the floor, and that's
Yep.
okay.
Yes. Sometimes today I was just this morning, I was taking a shower as Autumn was peeking her head through the curtain, showing me her rubber ducks as I'm standing, just trying to bathe. Thanks you,
Yeah.
child, for showing me these ducks. I appreciate it. Could I have 5 more seconds, please? But no,
Yep.
thank you so much for being on my podcast, and thank all of you for listening. This was Let's Talk, episode 18. Let's talk about working moms.